Do Avalanche fans ever get mad at the broadcast, or because of how you guys do what you do, are you generally safe from their barbs? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, oh man. Yeah.
I can already tell you're
fans-
choosing your words very carefully.
Yeah, I'm
I
sweating.
feel like
Yeah,
you're
I'm
answering a
sweating right
question.
now. Thank you.
Longtime NHL defenseman. You saw him playing for teams, most famously a Boston Bruin, which he probably forgets me, but I covered him when he was on the Bruins in the most notable years of your career. John-Michael Liles, who you probably also know now for doing stuff with the Colorado Avalanche on Altitude Sports, and he also does the Puck Around and Pod Out podcast, the excellently named podcast with Kyle Keith and Mark Rycroft. John-Michael Liles, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the shout out on the podcast. We were actually going to name it Sharts on Goal, and it was frowned upon. So we had to pivot on that one. We thought we had a winner. I don't know if you've seen the clip with Rycroft accidentally saying Sharts on Goal in the middle of a broadcast. But if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend looking it up. You will laugh very hard.
Same with celibacy. Celibacy was a big one this week. Just like, what's wrong with you guys is my first question.
There's at least, I mean, that was, I think that was pregame after we had the 0-1 Cup reunion. And so we had a bunch of, Rob Blake, Abisher, Ray Bork, Peter Forsberg on our pregame. And that set is kind of a really cool setting. And normally it's postgame. We bring the couches out like a late night talk show. But we had them on pregame, and so we're all sitting there after the 0-1 team comes through, and we're doing pregame, and Riker, it's like every 3 weeks, someone on our broadcast says something that they say it, and you're sitting next to them, and you snap your head over, and that was the exact reaction of Keith and I when he said celibacy. We're like, what? And he just kept rolling with it, and it was, I mean, our boss is sitting right off the side of the set. It was hilarious. And, they generally tend to roll with the crazy things that are said on our show.
I think that hockey is ready for a loud, outgoing, celibate player.
That's right.
Bring celibacy to hockey. I don't know if you're a Beach Boys fan, but the thing that Pete and I love is Brian Wilson back in the day talked about his creative process, and he was like, celibacy works. It's all about being celibate for so long that this, I don't know if he used the word semen, but he was like, that like you want it to build up inside of you and that breeds creativity. And someone interviewed his wife about that quote, and she was like, I have sex, okay?
Yeah.
But we've begun off track, which sounds right for anything involving the Avalanche broadcast. I want to ask, like, I think I know the answer to this, but what happened to the wine cellar shots? Is it just that you work too much now that they need you in person?
Yeah. So the original, I mean, this is, yes, there you go. That's the wine cave. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, so we lived in Vail for the last 8 years. When I retired, we moved to Vail. It was an amazing place to raise our two daughters. And the Avs kind of came to me a little year and a half plus ago and said, hey, how do we get you back to Denver to do TV full time? I'd always kind of done it on my schedule up and down the mountain. It's a hike, especially in the winter when you got weather and roads and traffic and things like that going up and back to the ski resorts. So, we, as a family sat down, and it's something I've always loved doing. And so the opportunity it was too good to pass up. I love working with our crew. We've got an amazing crew. Obviously the team is fantastic. I don't know that we saw it being this good this year. But yeah, the wine cave is in Vail. And so now most people that I'm here full time, we're back in Denver. Most people come up and they're like, man, I missed the wine cave. I'm like, yeah, me too. I missed being able to walk up 2 flights of stairs and go right to sleep after a broadcast and not have to, hop in my car to drive home. But it was an amazing thing. It actually kind of came about during COVID because we could only have 2 guys on set in studio. And I was going back and forth, and they said, well, do you want to broadcast from your house? And I'm like, sure. Can I drink? And they're like, it's COVID. Sure. Why not? And so it literally kind of morphed into something that I don't know. It just became this thing, and I mean, post game, if the Avs won, I was drinking wine during the game on the segments, and if the Avs won, I was drinking bourbon post game. So it was definitely towing the line, to say the least.
You're in Colorado. Were there any colleagues who were like, if he gets to drink, can I smoke weed?
I hadn't heard that one, but Barry Melrose commented on it when he saw me in the wine cave one time. I think he commented on it on Twitter and just said, wait a minute, this guy's drinking on air and I've been traveling around everywhere and we've never had the opportunity to do that. Like, what's happening? And I'm like, like I said, it turned into a thing. This is my pseudo wine cave right now. It's actually a closet in our rental house in Denver that I've turned into a little bit of a wine cave, but I definitely miss the original wine cave.
I mean, we've said it many times over the years. Like we kind of yearn for the days where sports shows and sports talk was just like 5 dudes sitting at a table smoking copious amounts of cigarettes. And like when I watched you in the wine cave, I was like, this rocks. He's doing the same thing that I'm doing right now on my couch, but he's working. And it was such a cozy vibe. I missed the hell out of it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's funny because I'm like, well, I'd be watching the game anyway, and I would be probably drinking wine anyway. And the fact that I was doing that and talking about hockey, like it was a pretty good gig. Now, don't get me wrong. I love getting to do color with Mosier and Riker, primarily for home games, just because my kids are still young and we're not in the travel stage yet for me. So it's, I like being home, and then I'm in studio for when the Avs are on the road. But it was a nice little thing, and yeah, it definitely resonated with people because I would say 75% of people are like, "Why are you in Denver? Why are you not in the wine cave?" And they're just so passionate about it, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it had to end at some point, I think, and it just felt like that this was a pretty good time.
When you get into media after you play, I mean, we're a big show in terms of wanting to see more personality from players. We don't want anybody to be anything that they're not. We want everyone to be themselves. But, I mean, you've had so many teammates, the kind of, I don't want to say robotic, I don't want to say boring, but the disposition that is projected from a lot of people in hockey isn't necessarily their true selves. So when you get into media, I'm sure it's tempting to be like, I know what the media looks like too. I'll probably just act like that. You have been so yourself this whole time. Did you think that was going to be tough to do? Because I feel like anytime someone does the sort of thing that you do, the reaction is overwhelmingly positive, and you're the one that people want to have on podcasts and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's funny. Getting into TV, I wasn't really sure. I mean, I finished in Boston first. I'll say I loved playing for the Boston Bruins. I didn't play a ton of games for the Boston Bruins, but Torrey Krug's one of my best buddies. I still talk to a lot of those guys. I was there for a little over a year. I started talking to some of because I knew I would end up in Colorado when I retired or when we retired. And I started talking to Kyle Keefe, who's been the longtime host for our show. Hey, what do you think about me getting into TV? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be awesome. I think we'd have a lot of fun. And it was just this thing where I didn't necessarily know I was going to go into TV, but it felt kind of good. And, living in Vail, like I said, it wasn't a full-time thing. It was kind of up and down the mountain, when our schedule allowed. And, it's funny, Mark Rycroft, who is an absolute gem, right? He's got the mullet, he's got the mustache, he's a gem. And he came to me, and he was doing studio at the time. We had former Bruin Peter McNabb was our color guy, and he was, Pete was one of the best. And I'm talking when I was playing for the Avs, and then when I started broadcasting, one of the best people. And Riker kind of pulled me aside one of my first shows, and he's like, "Listen, if you're not having fun, then why are you doing it? And if you're not having fun and being yourself, nobody is going to want to watch you because people want to have fun when they're watching. And I get it. We're trying to do the dance. You're trying to toe the line of being informative and still calling the game. But, in the end, we're all hockey fans. I played hockey for a long time, played in the NHL, and I'm still a hockey fan. I love watching the game of hockey. And I love having fun talking about it. And I think that's the beauty of our broadcast and everybody that's on it, whether it's Mark Mosier, Mark Rycroft, Kyle Keefe, myself. EJ's done some Eric Johnson's done some stuff with us. So, this year, he's got some ESPN stuff and ABC stuff coming up, but we just have a blast doing it. And I think, it still resonates to this day. I mean, this is my 9th year doing it, that if I'm not having fun on TV, then why should somebody want to watch me? They're not going to have fun watching me unless I'm having fun, doing my job and enjoying it.
I mean, it's a job, but like
Yes.
the job is a racket. And I think that when broadcasts come off as like so giddy that they're getting away with it, like how are we allowed to do this? And I'll like tie it back to like Jack Edwards and Andy Brickley, like the Nesson broadcast. Like back in the day, you could tell that. I mean, they called themselves off the ice. They called themselves the Fun Bunch. They were like, and Jack would always say, who has more fun than us? Like, how are we allowed to do that? If that's coming across, I don't think the audience is going to be like, oh, these fucking guys, like they're not taking it seriously. I think they then want to kind of participate in it more.
And like we talked to Mosier and we were like, you guys probably get killed by opposing fans who are like, who the fuck are these unserious clowns?
Eviscerated by opposing fans,
but it's not
would be the
for
right
them.
word. Eviscerated.
It's not for them. It's for the Avalanche fans. And I will say, like, I'll give credit to you guys. You guys have a ton of fun, but I'll also give credit to your bosses, because I think that a lot of the times there are bosses that see things go off the rails and they get terrified for themselves, for their jobs. And they say, listen, bring it back toward the middle. And I'm sure that like there was conversations been had, but like your bosses let you have fun. And you mentioned the couch, like, even though you're out of the wine cave, the broadcast is still very much dudes rock, dudes hanging out and talking about the game, having fun. So like, how have you had conversations about like, hey, bring it back towards the middle, fellas? You guys are getting a little too crazy on the couch.
It's our bosses are amazing, and that's that's everybody from the top of Cronky Sports all the way through the heads of Altitude and what they, how they approach everything. They know that we want to, we're going to have fun, and they'll give us kind of the, hey, here's the, you're right there. Let's just bring it back a hair. We love where we're at. We love what you're doing, but also, maybe let's not name the podcast Sharks on Goal. We don't think that's necessarily going to play. And so it's, I would say that they're awesome. Our boss essentially, he came up with the couch idea for late night at Ball Arena for our post game. And it's been a huge hit. And when we win, we get a player on that couch. And, I just go back to Gabe Landeskog came on the couch with his kids. Devon Toews has come on the couch with his kids. Brent Burns has come on the couch with his kids. When the Avs win, we've got 300, 400, 500 people in the audience watching our team on these couches and bringing a player on and really just chatting about the game, about life. And the fact that, the biggest one to me is Gabe Landeskog hadn't played in 3+ years. We play, we're playing the Avs, we're playing Montreal Canadiens tonight. We just, they had just played them that day. It was a day game in Denver, wearing the Nordiques jerseys against the Montreal Canadiens, and the Avs win, and Landy has 2 goals. Like, who sees that coming? And then he brings his 6-year-old daughter and his 3-year-old son on the couch with him after not having played for 3 years. Like, that's a core memory for him, for his kids, for his wife. And it was so cool to just be sitting on the couch and chatting with him, because he's a good buddy. And just like things like that, it's real. And I appreciate my bosses because they let us do what we do. They rein us in when it's needed. But for the most part, they're like, hey, you guys, you can read the temperature, and we're just going to let you roll with it. And it's been an awesome year for me being a part of this.
Okay, I thought the struggles of the Avalanche last year were greatly exaggerated, but I am still very surprised that they have been as dominant as they've been this season. And if this were another week, we would talk about how good they are. But Avalanche fans, we got to be fair. They stink, baby. They've lost 7 of last 9 or something, 5 of last 7. Anyway,
real tough night last year.
They're struggling right now.
Mouse.
And what's going on?
Well, listen, you knew there was going to be adversity at some point during the year. And I've said this, like, I'd rather have the adversity now than March, April, whenever. I think
Yeah,
what
Bruins,
you're seeing is
2023 Bruins never had adversity.
Nothing,
Oh my
no
God,
speed
yeah,
bumps
I
during the
know.
regular season.
I know. Yeah, they've definitely, they're hitting a few speed bumps right now. I think, we've talked about it on the broadcast. Nathan MacKinnon having an amazing year. Cale Makar, continuing to do what he's doing. They've dealt with a couple of injuries. The Landeskog injury, crashing into the net the way that he did, that was a tough one because being away for so long and then coming back. And I think, the playoffs last year, we talked about this on the broadcast. Like, you're running on pure adrenaline if you're Gabe Landeskog, right? And it was a little bit of a fairy tale story in the sense of how he came back, scoring in his second game back at home. That's the loudest I've heard Ball Arena. Like, that place was insane. You lose in 7 to Dallas, and now you come into training camp. And from day one in training camp, there's been a tone. And I would say that Gabe Landeskog has been the guy that's really helped set that tone kind of from Jared Bednar. And you have Gabe, go down. And the last few years, I would say that's a big piece missing. Landy, day in and day out in the room, it allows Nate to be Nate. He doesn't have to be that leader. It allows Cale to be Cale. He doesn't have to be that vocal leader. Everybody looks to Landy. He walks in a room. It's a lot like Patrice Bergeron or Zdeno Chara. I got to play with both of those guys. And when those guys walked in a room, like Z was the captain, but when Bergie walks in a room, like you kind of like, you just know, right? Like it's just an aura, and that's how Landy is. And so I think, losing Landy, and he had started, he started out, I'm not going to say slow, but you're not running on adrenaline like you were in the playoffs. So it's kind of ticking up. And you could see December, he was starting, like his game was really starting to get back to, I'm not going to call it 100% of where he was prior to the injury, but let's call it, 85, 90%, which is still pretty darn good for a top 6 forward. Losing him. And then to me, like the Devon Taves injury, because they've had to kind of shift. Now Malinsky moves up from the third pair to the left side with Makar. And, Taves and Makar are so good together. Malinsky just signed an extension. I think he's a really, really good player. And then, frankly, a great find as a college free agent. But it's still like that Taves just settles everything down. And so without him, I think it's just, there's just little stuff. And it's, a little bit of adversity. But at the same time, like I said, I'd rather face it now than March, April. And it's going to happen to every team. They got shot out of a cannon this year. There was a focus, like I said, from day one of training camp. They took care of their own end really well, especially earlier in the season. And they're an explosive team. And now you start to get into the January and the February where teams are locking down, and it hasn't been as easy to score 4 or 5 goals a night. And, there's just been some nights where they got behind. You said last night, that was a tough one. They were not good last night. They were stuck in the mud. They were slow. Ottawa was really good. Just, very tight gaps. They were forechecking, and Avs really, they had 8 shots through 2 periods. It was a tough one to talk about in the second intermission in my mind. But like I said, it's adversity. I think this group is, they're still going to be just fine. They've got a nice little cushion right now in the Central, but Dallas and Minnesota aren't going anywhere. So they kind of got to figure out, okay, how are we going to get to the Olympic break at this point? Tough game in Montreal tonight. You got a tough afternoon game against Detroit on Saturday, and then you finish, Detroit at home, San Jose at home, and San Jose is fun as hell to watch right now too. So it's a tough little stretch coming into the Olympic break, but I think this team will be just fine. You knew you're going to hit some speed bumps, and this is the time for the Avs.
How aggressive do you think they can or should be in terms of trying to solidify the group mid-season? You mentioned kind of what goes missing when a guy like Gabe is out or a guy like Taves is out. Like, do they look to solidify that? And if so, if you're addressing one area, what is it?
Yeah. I would say if I'm the general manager, and we've seen Chris McFarland be extremely aggressive the last few years. They've got 2 new goaltenders. The Mikko trade, that's kind of always out there. Everybody wants to talk about that constantly. what I would say is I could see them getting a little bit grittier if possible up front and on the back end. So maybe add some, maybe a bigger defenseman on the third pair. I mean, Manson and Burns have been really good. They've maybe had a little bit of an off night last night, but they've been really good. And nobody saw Josh Manson playing the left side with Brent Burns. I can tell you that. And they've been really, really good as kind of that second pair when Taves and Makar are the top pair. And then, Malinsky and Sammy G has been there, on the third pair. But I could see maybe getting a little bit bigger, a little more snarl on further down on the back end and, in the bottom six, I could see. Because I think when they're healthy, their top six is tough to compete with. When you look at MacKinnon and Natchez and Lehkonen, who's just such an unsung hero all the time. And then you throw Brock Nelson, who may be one of the hottest players in the NHL at this point. And you got Val Nichushkin on his wing. And then you got Landy, if he's healthy, that's a pretty solid top six.
Can you explain to me why the most explosive team with some of the most explosive players in the NHL is so fucking ass on the power play this year?
Oh man. We've had a lot of conversations about that on the broadcast and the podcast and, any other cast that you can think of. It's hard because you see the talent on this power play when you think about, and you said it, explosive, MacKinnon, Natchez, Makar. They've worked Brock Nelson into that left side, where Mikko used to be. And then to me, it's the figuring out, okay, what are we? Are we a rotational power play? Are we a shots by volume power play and crash the net? And it's like, when it doesn't work for 3 games, it's like, okay, let's maybe move a little bit different personnel in there and see if we can get a different look in terms of what the power play is. And I think, Bedsy's talked about this. They work on it so much, and it seems like they're all on the same page. But all of a sudden, you have 4 guys on the same page, and one guy doesn't move to a support position, and it's down the ice. And when you have MacKinnon and Natchez and the speed that they bring, to me, I know Nate loves staying out for a good portion of the power play, but when the third break-in doesn't have the speed that the first break-in does, those penalty kills are able to stand up and really just clamp down on entries. And that to me has been the most noticeable thing is when they don't have speed on entries, they're not very good. When they do have speed on entries, they're dangerous, whether it's Natchez or MacKinnon coming in. If they've got speed on entries, then they've been a lot more dangerous and it allows them to create more. But what we've seen more often than not is 2, 3, 4 attempted entries on a power play that just don't work out.
And that's okay. I'm distracted by someone in the chat who says Cale Makar hasn't been as effective power play quarterback as he has been in years past. That might be true, but I'm going to get in there and make it about the Oilers. Leon Draisaitl isn't scoring from his office at the rate that he normally does this year, and the Oilers have the best power play in the NHL, by a lot. So, even if some of the principles still aren't operating at their best, it's still a 5-on-4 that features Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. I guess there's no question in that, but at the end of the day, isn't it still the pieces are there? So it might be more kind of strategy than anything else.
Yeah, well, and listen, I think Mikko Rantanen is a big piece too on that. That was on that power play that used to feed Cale Makar from the other side, right? So it's a different. I think it's a different look because a lot of it works off Nate's side and Natchez's side when you think about that kind of one-timer side. So now all of a sudden you're taking away the Makar one-timer because you've got 2 righties there, right? And so we've seen that more, I think, this year as teams are saying, okay, we're going to take away MacKinnon, right? And we're going to take away Makar. And if the other 3 players can beat us with a couple of really good passes, we're going to tip our cap to them. But yes, it's. I think I'm not saying Mikko Rantanen was the missing piece. I'm just saying it's a different look when you don't have Mikko Rantanen on that other side, and you can feed Makar those one-timers. I don't think Cale's been less effective on the power play. It's a different look power play than it has been in years past, in my mind.
Okay, I want to ask about your relationship with Avalanche fans, because you probably have a very unique thing in that Avalanche fans, in our experience, get slighted very easily, and we are not judging them for that because we are fully aware that fandom, by its definition, is irrational, where you are a fanatic and you are taking something more seriously than you're taking other things. So that is absolutely great. We do a thing on this show called What Does It Mean for Nathan MacKinnon's Hart candidacy, where whenever we're talking about anything, we just tie it back to how Nathan MacKinnon's going to win the Hart, and no one can get mad at us because Avalanche fans get so mad. Do Avalanche fans ever get mad at the broadcast, or because of how you guys do what you do, are you generally safe from their barbs? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, oh man. Yeah.
I can already tell you're
Fans.
choosing your words very carefully.
I'm
I
sweating.
feel like
Yeah,
you're
I'm
answering a
sweating right
question.
now. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sweating. Yeah. Well, listen, here's what I'll say. There's some fans that are irrational, and add social media into that, because social media is totally rational.
Doesn't help.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. We do catch some flack and some heat, I would say, from Avs fans. Now, I'm not saying that's MacKinnon based or anything based. It's, we try and put a positive spin on it. Are we homers? I would say yes. We have some homerism for sure, but we also work for the team. So we kind of have to be homers. And we'll take some heat. We take some heat for the power play when we say it's due to break out. Well, it's 51 games into the season, or 50 games into the season at this point. And we've been saying that all year. So yes, we do take some heat from Avs fans at times. That being said, MacKinnon and the Hart, I think he's making absolutely making a case. Now, I just got off the phone with Kyle Keefe talking about our show tonight, and we were talking about Macklin Celebrini at 19 years old. And I talked to Ryan Miller, who's one of my best buddies yesterday, works for the San Jose Sharks, and he's like, listen, I love Nathan MacKinnon, think he's an amazing player, but what Macklin Celebrini is doing on our team is hard to argue with. I'm like, buddy, I don't think I can argue with you, because he is putting together an amazing season. I think he's 40 points up on his next closest teammate. And it's unreal. So do I think MacKinnon's absolutely in the Hart conversation? Yes. Do I think what Macklin Celebrini is doing deserves to be talked about alongside Nathan MacKinnon? 1,000%. And I'm sure I'm going to get hammered by not only Avs fans, but plenty of other fans as well, because that's the nature of the business.
I mean, but the MacKinnon is doing MacKinnon things, and McDavid is doing McDavid things, and we didn't know until this season. We thought we did, but this is the confirmation of what Celebrini things look like. And we talk a lot about the year that Taylor Hall won the Hart, and he was so much better than everyone else on his teammate. The big difference between that year and this year is that there wasn't a Nathan MacKinnon also having that Nathan MacKinnon season, or a Connor McDavid doing what Connor McDavid's doing. This is going to be a hell of a Hart race. A lot less frustrating than last year. Last year's I was losing my mind, because I think we were all in agreement that Leon Draisaitl was the best player in the league, but obviously there was an argument for Kucherov, there was an argument for MacKinnon, and then at the end, a fucking goalie wins it, and I was like, well, then what are we fucking doing here?
Yeah. Well, and think about, listen, let's be honest, Kucherov is going to just go all gas down the stretch, because that's what he does every year, and Tampa is right there, and they've had a ton of injuries, and I mean, what they've been able to do. I mean, John Cooper's a buddy of mine. Dan Heino's an assistant coach there. I lived with him my first 3 years in the NHL. It's amazing what they're doing. And we all know that Cooch always seems to find another gear down the stretch, and it's super impressive. And I said to Miller yesterday, I was like, Celebrini, what he's doing, it reminds me of a young Crosby. It's the closest thing to Crosby, I think, that we've seen in terms of how he plays, the compete level, and just the way that he sees the game. It is so cool to watch. I love broadcasting the games against the Sharks right now, because it's fun. It's fun hockey, and it's how the NHL should be. It's not, a 1-4-4 check that you're just beating your brains out trying to talk about the neutral zone, impasse that, has been going on for 40 plus minutes. It's open, it's fun, it's scoring chances, and it is I just love watching it.
Very, very brave of you to admit that you're friends with noted cheater Danny Heino.
I was gonna say, when you lived together, was he playing ball in the house, smashing things, knocking over glasses?
Oh God, Danny! I always joke. I love High Note, like one of my favorite people. I always joke, like Danny, living with him added 5 years to my career and took 10 years off my life. Like he's one of the best humans ever. And just like he's the, like salt of the earth, one of my best buddies, was in my wedding. And he's freaking one of a kind. And I love that guy. And the fact that he's, in Tampa now and doing what he's doing, says he's really, really happy. Like he was with the Avs AHL team here last year, and losing him to Tampa was definitely a big loss.
His vertical leap is looking pretty good these days.
Yeah, really athletic.
That athleticism's real good over on
I
that
sent
bench.
him a text. I sent him that video, and I go, Dan, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm just saving lives of the people in the first two rows. And I was just like, I'm shaking my head. But that's typical Danny, right? Like, and he goes, and by the way, I got on the score sheet. I'm like, okay.
There you go.
Trying to make a play.
Yeah.
Just trying to
he
make
did
a
it
play.
in Nashville too and got away with it, so I can't blame him for trying
exactly.
it again. Before we let you get out of here, can you tell us something about Nathan MacKinnon that makes him less horrifying and scary as a personality from a distance? Because he just seems like the most intense person of all time.
Listen, Nate's super intense. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like he's intense. I played golf with him this summer. He was intense for majority of the round, but like he's actually like he's easy to talk to, great guy. But he just like he's one of those guys, like super intense. And I mean, it reminds me a bit of Sid. Like Sid's a little bit more mellow, and like it's funny because I mean I'm friggin' nobody, right? And I remember the first time I met Sid, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, you went to Culver Military Academy, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I'm a huge military history buff," and I'm like, "Holy shit!" Right? Like Sid, like just chatting with me out of nowhere. Like we're skating. It was like I think it was the 12 lockout, and we were just skating together in Arizona, and I was like, man, this guy, like, it was awesome. And then every time he saw me, wherever, if I was playing in Carolina, he's in Pittsburgh, and I saw him after the game, he would always come up and just chat and say hi. Like, he was a really good guy. And like, it's funny. Like the way that he competes on the ice, and Nate's a lot like that, like just with the compete level and the intensity. But you walk down the hall and like, I'll see him and he'll be like, "Hey, Johnny, what's going on?" And we'll chat for, 5 minutes or so. And, it's just kind of like, that's how he is. He's very intense. And I think a lot of times people see him at the rink. And so that's, obviously like that's his work. And he's more intense than most. And he brings that the minute that he walks into Ball Arena, and probably the minute that he walks out of Ball Arena. And that's who he is. And that's why he's, what makes him great, I would say.
Certain players will see like a team is interested in trading for this player or whatever, and will make some sort of comment of like, "Oh no, not in that room. They'll eat him alive." We joked about it when like when Jake Wallman started moving around and like, cause he was doing the gritty and everything. And we were like, "Hey, like every time he relocates, we're going to ask like, is that team like, oh, Sharks, perfect for him. It's a bunch of kids. That's going to be great. Oilers, Leon Draisaitl might murder him. Who knows? Like, is there that kind of thing with MacKinnon where certain players you think like he will just eat alive, or is he able to kind of separate? Look, I'm a nut about this thing, but you can be yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think what I would say is with Landy back, like I said, like he Landy's a really good leveler, I would say, for Nate, right? Like Landy can talk to Nate, like they've played together for a long, long time. Landy is who he is. And I think he definitely allows Nate to be Nate. You've got Brent Burns, 1,500 plus games in the NHL. Like that's a guy that keeps everything light in the room. I think Nate has a ton of respect for him. And what I would say is I think a lot of guys that come in the room, whether they're young or come in at late 20s, early 30s, I think a lot of people see how good Nate is and the shape that he's in, and they kind of seek Nate out at times, right? And I know Zadorov has talked about and other guys have talked about like the nutrition and things like that. Like like these young guys, they're like, "All right, Nate, like why is this? Why is this?" And like Nate kind of goes through it. And he's just very, hyper focused. And we've talked about it a bunch on the broadcast and whatnot. Like Nate's first 4 years, and if you ask Nate this, he would probably say like they were good, not great. And I just remember, I think whatever, after one of those, the fourth year, he's like, I got to figure something out. I got to figure out who I am and how I can get better. And it was like he was shot out of a cannon after year 4. And we've done it. I mean, the comparisons, I think he averaged like 56 points a year, give or take, those first 4 years. And then the after that, I think he's right around 90, I want to say, ish points on average. And the last 3 years, I think he was 141 or maybe 144, 120 something. And I think a lot of that he attributes to, okay, here's my training regimen. I'm working out with Sid. My nutrition is dialed and probably elevated above a lot of people. And he's not afraid to talk about it. So I would say a lot of guys you're outside looking in. It's probably a little scary, but once you're in that room, I think Nate is probably very open about kind of how he approaches things. And it's definitely helped him be one of the best players in the world.
Chat says, tell me something to make Nate less scary. Lists 10 reasons to be more afraid of him.
That's the perfect answer.
That's who he is, though, seemingly, and he rocks for it. I mean, it clearly works.
Yeah.
And as for the first 4 years were kind of ordinary by his standards, we were saying every show early on this season, like, if you are selling Connor Bedard's stocks, that's your problem. But look at what it was like for Nathan MacKinnon in the beginning. Not saying they're the same player, but like a great, like a prodigal type player can hit the NHL looking very good instead of amazing, and it's just a matter of when, and it definitely was for MacKinnon.
Right, exactly. So
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being yourself in all that you do hockey-wise. It makes the sport and its coverage a hell of a lot more fun. John-Michael Liles, we appreciate you, man.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you having me.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to What Chaos here on YouTube. You will get everything, daily episodes, player interviews, and so much more. It's all here on the What Chaos YouTube. Hit subscribe.